an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Veronica Mars Season 1, Episode 13. Ain't No Magic Mountain High Enough. In this episode, there's an elaborate theft that winds up pointing to Thumper. Oh, how shocking. Truth is, I'm here for it. I hope that Thumper gets thrown in prison and never let out, even though it's not really, worth it. I just personally want Weevil to win forever. Just saying. And also, there's a whole subplot with Dick and his brother Beaver that I really do not like at all, and I wish wasn't here, and I would like it if we could just delete this entirely. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. Excuse me. Many thanks to Jacqui for commissioning this episode. There had been such a long space between the previous episode and the one before that, and I'm really glad that I have this one coming into the very next week this time around. This episode has a lot of weird moments in it for me because of actually feeling some sympathy for Jacqui, and not Jacqui who commissioned this, but Jacqui, what's her name? I always want to call her Emma Thompson, but that is definitely a white lady. But I just don't. Rachel in the comments says, Jacqui who you hate. Yes. The thing is that this show, and that's fine, but this show has made me really, really dislike her, and then sort of turned the corner and wanted me to be like, I think they want me to be on her side all of a sudden, based on the fact that they got her involved last episode with setting up this guy on Wallace's behalf. Tessa Thompson. Thank you, Rachel. And now they're doing this thing with her father being accused of he's being accused of being the one basically to plant a bomb on the bus. And I have two questions. First question, where is the girl whose father was the bus driver who everybody accused of being drunk? Because I kind of want her to reach out to Jacqui, and yet if she really believes Jacqui's father did this, she would hate Jacqui more than anybody, because she not only had to deal with her father being accused, but now that her father's name has been cleared, he's still dead. So Jacqui's father, allegedly, is the one responsible for that. It's a weird thing, though, because it doesn't seem like there's a good motive, really, being circulated along with the rumors that he is connected to this crime. But everybody just wants somebody to blame so badly that they are willing to go along with this, because it's just it's unfinished business, and it's a huge tragedy that's hanging over everything. So anyway, I'm going to start at the beginning here. And actually, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to get some business out of the way, because I feel a way about this. I'm just going to talk about Dick and Beaver right out of the gate. First of all, would like to register again my disgust at their names. So there's this whole thing going on where Beaver is dating, apparently, Mac. And it is a weird sort of, because we saw a few episodes ago that Beaver was asking Mac to create a sort of a fake company, it looked like he was committing fraud somehow, is the impression that I got. And Mac agreed to help him out if she could get in on whatever it was. That was a while back, and we have not seen since then what they've been up to. I had thought that it had something to do with his father's being involved in real estate. I thought that it was a reaction to their assets being frozen. And whatever it was, it seems to be going along pretty swimmingly because we haven't heard about it. So the fact that him and Mac are together is a bit of a surprise. Like, you could have seen it coming, but it's not really... I mean, there was no lead up to it that I saw, unless I was missing obvious little clues and stuff. But it makes sense. Like, she's really smart. She's a little nerdy. She is helping him out with something that is obviously kind of like shady that she is agreeing not to tell anybody about. And having those sorts of projects with somebody, having a secret together, bonds you. So it makes sense that they are sort of, you know, dating and public about it at this point. Dick, of course, has something to say about this and assumes that she is gold digging. That she is only with his brother because of his brother's money, which is just, it's one of those things that I really love, that somebody like Dick, when he says things like this, really tells on himself and he doesn't realize that he's doing it. But he's basically saying, well, who would want to date me unless it was for my money? Like, that's what he assumes is going on, is he just does not see any motivation. And this is obviously... He would say, well, my brother sucks. Of course you wouldn't want to date him. But I feel like Dick feels this way about himself, too. And he should, because he's trash. And they decide to sort of get back at him. And there's a thing going on throughout the episode of a sort of like, ooh, who stole the money? Could it be them? Could it be them? And they sort of, like, I won't say that they hint that it could be her and Beaver. I feel like really what it is that I was like looking for the least likely suspect and sort of zeroing in on them. And when I saw them walking around, I was like, it doesn't really make sense that he would take that money because he has money, but also maybe he took that money. Like, he is involved in some weird scam thing, I think. Unless he's actually building a legitimate company, which I doubt. And maybe he needed $12,000. That's not nothing, you know, and they don't have assets to build off of, so who knows? But that's sort of floating around in the background. Then Dick is like a huge asshole, and they decide that they're going to get back at him. And here comes the thing that I really, really hate and hope we can just talk about this one time and never ever speak of again. It's really unfortunate because this episode undoes a lot of the good it did in the first season, where there was a character who was looking, I think it was a boy who was asking Veronica to track down his dad, and winds up realizing that a woman that comes into the game shop all the time is actually his father, having had a sex change. And the show is really compassionate and good about how they decide to handle a trans person, and the immediate reaction being like feeling betrayed and horrified by somebody who was not prepared for this, but then them realizing this is still my parent, whether it's my mom or dad or whatever you want to call them, they are my blood and they're somebody that I care about. And what gender they are right now does not matter to me at all in terms of my relationship to them. And that was an episode that handled that whole question really, really well. Unfortunately, this episode decides to make trans people a joke. And what Beaver and Mac decide to do is go on a website and find a trans escort and send her to like kind of trap Dick. And that's the thing that I really find super objectionable. It's not just the fact that the trans person is a punchline. It's that he is tricked into sleeping with somebody who first of all is an escort, and he isn't aware of that. And that the fact that he is in a public place when he comes jumping out of the car, flipping out once he realizes that this person does not have the genitals that he was looking for. That's maybe like one of the few things that saved her from violence, because this is exactly what winds up getting plenty of trans sex workers killed. And I understand that at this point, the awareness surrounding what was going on with trans sex workers and trans women, especially in general, was not as high up on our consciousness as it is now. There have been a lot of murders. There have been several here in Dallas, just like an hour away from me, enough that they are starting to wonder if there is a serial killer out there targeting trans women specifically. And a lot of them did engage in sex work. And, there's a lot of stigma surrounding sex work anyway, but when it comes to being a trans woman, you are often turned away from other types of work, even if you want it. So I don't ever like to say, oh, people do sex work because they have no other options, because that's not true at all. There are plenty of people with plenty of options, and sex work they just enjoy and they make good money and they just decide to keep doing it. But trans people are put in a position in particular where they don't get a lot of choices because of blatant and lawful discrimination. It is still, specifically in Texas, and I know in many states, it is still allowed to turn down someone for a job based on the fact that they are trans. And when the law is supporting someone in discriminating against you, you are going to have way fewer options in the type of work that you get. And doing sex work is going to be something that you look at. And the thing that happens here with him jumping out of the car and screaming at her is treated as, isn't it funny that we got to him? And I don't know if the trans woman involved here was aware that she was the punchline. Did she know that they were having her trick him? Like, and by trick, I don't just mean, oh, he thinks I'm a woman, but really I'm a man, because I believe trans women are women. She's a woman, whatever genitals she's got. I mean trick in that he doesn't know that she's not somebody's mom at this thing, like she says. She's a sex worker who has been hired to fuck with him. Does the trans woman know that the whole joke is supposed to be, I have a penis? Isn't that funny? Like, because I feel like that's something that most trans sex workers would not agree to do due to the danger. Now, we can assume that Dick is not going to be super dangerous because he doesn't carry weapons, whatever. But there are multiple ways to hurt somebody. And when you get into a situation like this, the panic defense is still a legal defense in a lot of states. And by that, I mean, there are men who have gotten away with murdering trans women because they used the defense of, she didn't tell me that she had a dick. And the courts uphold that they had the right to take that woman's life because she had different genitals than what he wanted. That is a legally sanctioned excuse for murder. And you guys can read up on this. It has been done many times. And there are a lot of organizations that are lobbying and trying to fight against that being legal and used as a defense anymore. But it still is. And I just want people who see jokes like this on TV to know it's not a joke. It's somebody's life. This is genuinely dangerous. Women die frequently. And the men who kill them are considered excused. And it just fucked me up a little bit to see that this episode. And have it be treated as, oh, we really got my brother back for being a dick to us. Like, you are angry at your brother for being demeaning to your girlfriend. And your response to that is to demean another woman in order to get back at how, It's just really disgusting and upsetting. And I really wish that the writers had been a little bit more thoughtful and sensitive to this. And it's storylines like this that make it clear why we need different types of people in the writer's room. Because somebody involved in the LGBTQ community would have read this script and realized this was a fucking problem. But, you know, I don't know how many hands this had to pass through. But it just, I could not just act like this was a little thing that I can let go of. This is a big deal to me. And it's sort of, it's treated like a moment of triumph over Dick. And Dick is not somebody, I mean, Dick has been totally down for girls to be date raped previous in the show. Dick has been fine with turning his back on a girl being unconscious. This is just something that I feel like we keep going back to, oh, Dick is an asshole that we should see. Dick is not just an asshole. Dick is like a genuinely bad, dangerous person. And I would be worried about him trying to track this woman down again and get revenge on her somehow. You know, like, I would not put that past him because he's obviously pretty fucking fragile. So I do not like. Keisha says she seemed to be in on it. And that's the thing, Keisha, like, she seemed to, I guess, but it's not clear. And even if that is what happened, I feel like that's not reality. I feel like most trans women would not agree to this because it's super dangerous. And the show is not addressing how dangerous that could be. They just want to play this as a joke. And it's really gross. And I have to address it and just say that as somebody who has had this, like, living down here where I do in Texas and being so close to multiple women, multiple trans women being murdered to the point that they are starting to suspect there is a serial killer in Dallas targeting trans women specifically, targeting trans women sex workers, probably. That's what they think. This sort of thing is not some shit that I find funny anymore. Like, I might have found this funny 10 years ago, before I understood the implications of this. Maybe even 5 years ago, but I think not even then. But at this point in my life, this is just like a really ugly bit of like bigotry that the writers don't realize they're showing to us. So anyway, I just want to get that out of the way. I know I spent a lot of time on it, but I feel like it deserved to have time spent on it because it's serious, you know, and it's not a huge deal because Dick is not a big deal, but I just really feel like we're treating Dick as like a harmless jerk, and he is not. Dick is dangerous. You know, the kind of person that he is, the entitlement that he feels towards everybody, and the way that he approaches his relationships with people and women especially. I feel like he is the exact kind of person that worries me nowadays. You know, it's just, he's the exact kind of person that could do something like murder a trans woman out of panic and then get away with it. 100% exactly that kind of person. So take that as you will. All right. So I'm trying to, like, normally, guys, I play the episodes when I am recording with you guys so that I can, like, track what's going on and cover it in like real time. And for whatever reason, Hulu, it's not playing when I press play. So I'm going to have to kind of go off of my memory here. Forgive me. I'm going to start off with talking about Jacqui's father because he goes to see Veronica's dad in order to get him to represent him. Because now that all of this stuff is blown up in the news, it's bad for him. You know, it's just like, it's the whole situation, as we start to see gradually, is so much worse than he wants Keith to see. And it's super frustrating because we know that Keith has all of this information already and is just trying to give this guy a fucking chance to come clean and tell him the truth about what happened. And he isn't taking the opportunity to do it, he just keeps on insisting, no, I told you everything. It's fine. What? No, you know everything you need to know. And you'd think that by the time he has, like, been already told, no, I know you're lying. Here's one thing that I am aware of. Because Keith tells him, I see this photo of you talking to this teacher. It's very clear that you guys had something going on. That's the first one. That's the first time that Keith is like, dude, you're obviously not telling me everything. You would think that this dude would get the picture that Keith maybe knows what the fuck is going on already, and you should just come clean. But he still holds on to his gambling debts as a private matter, which honestly is the stupidest fucking thing. Because this motherfucker, he is trying to act like the gambling debts that Sheriff Lamb, for some reason, knows all about are secret enough that an investigator like Keith wouldn't find out about them. Why would you think that? Sheriff Lamb knows enough about it that he was able to blackmail you. I would think that this is just straight up not as well hidden a secret as you think it is. But he apparently just wants to believe that Sheriff Lamb had some kind of special connection that he was able to exploit, and doesn't really want to look at the fact that maybe this is like an indication your shit's out on the street now, dude. You need to be aware of that. So yeah, the story about the teacher, and I wish so much that I had the name of the teacher in front of me. I'm going to IMDb just this episode so that I can get this. He was having an affair, and he basically was in a position where because his wife found out, oh, Miss Dumbass is Agnes. Oh, that's right. Miss Dumas. Oh, I feel so bad for her. That's right. And she's dead. But yeah, it turns out that he was involved with her. His wife figured it out. And she was like threatening to blow up his life a little bit. And when Keith hears this, he's like, do you not see how damning that looks, that you were having an affair with a woman who died on the bus crash? That people are definitely going to think that's a huge motive. Like, whatever scant motives they've got right now, this is a really potentially huge one. And the fact that Keith and Veronica have spotted this just means it's a matter of time before somebody else uncovers it. So that's the first thing. And then with the gambling debts, oh my God, guys, this thing happens. How many of you have Macs? I have this thing on my Mac where if I swipe right on my little touch mouse, it takes me to a whole other version of my desktop, and I cannot find my people again. I'm out here with like a totally different desktop. Here we go. I'm sorry. That's just like, it happened while I was trying to swipe through the IMDb. But he, with his gambling debts, is in another incredibly vulnerable position where it turns out that he threw a really, really important game. And there's just so much fucking fodder here that they can use to say that this is why he was doing, like, maybe he was, I'm forgetting exactly the connection. This is why I wish the fucking Hulu was working right now. What the connection is to the bus crash that they could make in saying that something with his debt and his gambling could be tied to that. But it could be something that somebody forced him to do, I guess, is the implication there. And I just wish that because he only finally caves and tells Keith everything once Keith assures him he already knows it all. And I'm just very concerned that he is going to realize, or that he is going to stop there, essentially, and not continue to tell him the rest of what he needs to. He still hasn't proven, in other words, that he is capable of being completely honest. So I understand why Keith takes his case. Keith he has a personal like fanboy thing going on. And I understand him feeling like, at the very least, even though you're hiding a bunch of stuff, I don't think you were really the one to do this. In principle, I get why Keith took his case, but I am still super worried about the fact that this guy doesn't seem like he is able to tell the fucking truth and what that's going to lead to later. Because, like, you know, it could just blow up in Keith's face so badly. He knows plenty, but well, who's to say there's not even another thing that he hasn't found out about yet, you know? God knows. So, okay. He winds up taking this dude's case after hearing that there's a really kind of touching moment, and it really says something for the actor who plays Veronica's dad, that he is so good as to make me give a shit about baseball, because when he finds out that this dude threw a game, and it was like an important game, right? It was game 4, I think, which is supposed to be a qualifying game for the World Series, if I'm not mistaken. But he has this like emotional moment where he's like, oh my God, I remember that game. And I thought that you guys lost because I wasn't there. Like, I was sort of superstitious about the fact that I was a good luck charm to you all. And I had to miss that game. And I felt responsible, weirdly, for the fact that y'all, you know, that you didn't make it. I can't tell you all how little of a shit I give about sports. Like, there is no word that adequately expresses just how uninvested I am. And yet, Keith saying this got to me a little bit. I was like, oh, Keith, you felt bad. It wasn't about you. It wasn't your fault, buddy. What are you talking about? But anyway, so let's talk about Jacqui, because this bitch is pretty tough this episode. I'm a little bit proud of her. And I'm not like happy to be saying that because I don't like her. But honestly, she's got some damn dignity in this, and I was impressed. I don't know if any of you all have ever been on the receiving end of an entire school's vitriol before. I thankfully have not. I have been on the receiving end of like a group of people, but it was never like the whole school. I still had people who were like on my side. Not to say Jacqui doesn't have a couple, but it's sparse, and the people who are on her side, she's not really like friends with. She knows that Veronica doesn't believe it's her, but her and Veronica aren't friends. She and Wallace are not dating anymore, and he comes to her defense here, but he's only able to do so much. She doesn't really have a support system, you know? So I just really feel for her, and I love the fact that at the very least, this experience of being ostracized might serve to give her and Veronica some common ground to become friends. Now, I'm not really interested, I will be clear, in the idea of Jacqui and Veronica becoming friends in principle. Personally, I don't think that they would work as friends. Like, Veronica is way too... She has a certain code that she lives by, and Jacqui really doesn't seem to. And she is much more aware of, like, being grateful for things, while Jacqui, it feels, seems to take everything for granted and is also really petty. So I don't know that they would do well as friends, but I do like the idea that at the very least, they have something that they can kind of bond over with this. Because Veronica has been, most definitely, has been on the receiving end of this sort of treatment from fellow classmates and from teachers. And I'm wondering if this is going to be something that they can sort of like see eye to eye over. So she is being fucking talked about by everybody. We have Mrs. Hauser, who is the devil. I am really delighted. I thought for sure that it was going to be Madison, who was the one who stole the cash box. Do you want to know why, too? And this is how much my, like, paranoia was going. So, they're throwing a carnival to raise money for the senior trip. And they are selling, Madison is, like, one of the pep squad. And she is selling pies in these pink boxes that look almost exactly the right size for a cash box to fit inside. So I really thought that she had taken the cash box, stuck it in an empty pie box, and then put it on the shelf, like in plain sight in her tent. And, you know, just marked it that somebody was going to come pick it up, that it was a pie that had been like already purchased or something. And it was going to turn out to be her. But it turns out to be Mrs. Hauser, who is at the very beginning of this episode talking to herself kind of in front of her class about how one day she's going to be able to stop working for these fucking kids, basically, is what she says. Like, it's clear she does not like her job. She does not like being around a bunch of kids who are, there's two extremes, and it's something that I find really kind of amusing when you stop to think about it. So I'm going to go with Mrs. Hauser's being like middle class, right? And she's teaching either a bunch of poors who are ignorant and uneducated in her eyes, or she's teaching a bunch of rich brats. And either way, she doesn't like that. So she just wants to get the fuck out of here. And I should have taken note of that, but I didn't. And what winds up, they find out that, like, when she handed over the cash box to Veronica, it was probably already light. And she had been up in here taking money and, like, stashing it in the ceiling. They wind up finding her footprints in the glitter that is all over the floor, which is the most beautiful, poetic thing. That is what, like, the tracking the glitter through was what gave her away. But she is so gross and antagonistic to Jacqui, especially to Veronica as well. Jacqui, it definitely feels a lot more coded as racism. I feel like it just feels so much more to me like what she says about her has an extra edge to it, because this girl is not only, her father is accused of murdering all these people, and that's terrible enough. Not only like, but also I think there's a sort of like implication there for me that, oh, you thought that despite being black, that money would save you. Well, it doesn't, sweetie. You're still black. You know, I feel like that is like the tone that she has all the time, and calls her trash. Trash is still trash. Mark my words. At one point, it feels like she's really dancing around trying to use some like racial slurs to me. So it is particularly delightful to me that she winds up getting caught in the end. And there are times where somebody is so terrible on these shows that even once they're nailed to the wall, you kind of want more. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to see them really get humiliated in a way that at all equals the way they treated other people the whole time. Maybe the whole time being this one episode, or maybe the whole time being like all season long. Who knows? But there is, you know, I feel this way sometimes about Logan's dad, about Aaron Eccles. He fucking killed a teen that he was fucking around with, which is right there just so gross out of the gate. but then also tried to kill Veronica to cover his ass. And he gets arrested, and we see him, like, encountering Logan in prison at one point, but we don't ever really get to see him be, like, pilloried. We don't get to see him truly suffering the humiliation that you want to see from him, you know? So that's kind of how I'm feeling about this, teachers, that I just want a little bit more. But there's a whole other thing going on, because it turns out that there were two people who stole the cash box. She stole the money out of it first and was stashing it somewhere. But Weevil grabbed the cash box himself and had his niece hiding it in her bag. And it's so great because at one point, like, Veronica sees Weevil walking around, sees his niece with her backpack on, and kind of thinks that feels pretty likely to her. And so she goes over and tries to act slick, like she's not totally obvious that she's accusing him and his niece of hiding it. And he immediately knows what she's doing, because she tries to, like, touch up on the backpack and be like, oh, Powerpuff Girls, which one is this? And, like, is acting like she's just trying to get a better look when she's feeling up the bag to see if there's a box in there, you know? And he calls her out and is like, it's the one that's not shaped like a cash box. Feel free to open it if you want. Well, it turns out it had been in there. And then he put it in the ball pit, which was another place that Veronica thought of later. And they wind up emptying the entire ball pit. And she feels like an idiot because it's not there. But then we find out that she isn't an idiot at all. It was there for a time. He had just picked it out already and taken it away. And the fact that his niece is in on this, I kind of love it. Like, I want to know how much she even understands what she's doing. Because this is definitely the kind of thing that as a kid, I would have done without even questioning. It would have felt like a game. You know, okay, we're going to put this in your bag. Don't tell anybody. We're going to go. And then, okay, when you're in the ball pit, unzip your bag and take the box out and put it at the bottom of the ball pit. Put it somewhere over in the corner where people aren't going to step on it. And I would have just been like, okay, yeah, no, I'll totally do that. And not have comprehended really what I was up to, right? So what Weevil does is he gets the money that's remaining in the cash box and he goes and buys some pills. And at one point, Veronica, in front of everybody, they're interviewing everybody who could be potentially involved in this theft. She says something about how, because one of the guys is like, well, how could you even know if the money you found on somebody is the money from the cash box? And she says something about how one of the bills said Nancy on it and had a phone number, and it was written in Sharpie. And when they find the money later in Thumper's locker, it has a bill, a $50 bill that says Nancy on it. And she goes to Weevil and tells him, like, super weird, but I made that up. And then it just turned out to be true. It's so weird how that happened, right? And I love Weevil because he gives her a look and is obviously just impressed. Like, I really just low-key want them to, like, I ship them a tiny bit. I don't really, because I still have issues with how this show has not decided what it means for him to be a gangster. So I have some, concerns surrounding that and what that would look like and the kind of danger she would be in. Because, listen, guys, whether or not a person who is involved in crime is a good person in their heart of hearts is pretty much irrelevant. When I side-eye somebody who dates a person who's involved in criminal activity, I'm not side-eyeing the fact that they are willing to be with someone who breaks the law. Because honestly, we all break the law all the time. And we just decide that we're willing to take the risk on certain things. And we're often like That we all are hypocrites about the law is what I'm saying. So that's not even really the thing. It's when you decide to date somebody who's involved in organized crime specifically, you are now a target. Whether you like it or not, aligning yourself with that person means that you're part of that world now. And you don't get to just walk out of that world after you become part of it. That's not how it works. Unless the two of you split in a really explosive and public way, everyone knows that you don't know anything about the business. You have no information that could be damaging to somebody else. And you move like all the way across the country to somewhere where that information would be irrelevant. Unless all of those things, you're kind of in. And I don't want that for Veronica. But that's how it works normally with gangs. And I don't know what the show is exactly doing with the PCHers. So I kind of like feel like my instinct is, don't do it, Veronica. But then I'm like, well, this feels like kind of a fake gang though. So maybe it'd be fine. But yeah, he sets Thumper up so that it looks like he definitely has the money from the cash box and drugs that he bought probably with intent to distribute in his locker, and gets Thumper arrested, which, it's such a swift comeuppance for Thumper that I can't help but be suspicious of it. I feel like there has to be something that winds up backfiring here. I don't know what that looks like, but everybody was pretty much against Weevil. And getting rid of Thumper doesn't change the attitude of the whole rest of his crew. I don't know what he does to get them to realize backing Thumper was a mistake, or to get them to realize Thumper was the one who killed Felix, actually. I don't know at all what that's about and how he's going to handle that. I trust he has a plan, but part of me wonders if he's not just doing what he can do to get Thumper out of the way and making it all up as he goes along. There might just be no plan. It might simply be, you in particular are a fucking problem. So I'm going to get rid of you first, and I'll worry about how I can get everyone else on my side later. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, I'm just like, I'm really interested in what's going on with his crew and getting everybody to realize, because he has, as far as I know, no actual evidence that Thumper killed Felix. And nobody's going to believe that, it just, I don't know how persuasive he could be. You can explain that something makes sense technically, and people can understand that you're right, that it does make sense, but that doesn't mean that they're in their gut really going to hear you and believe it. So I'm very curious about what that looks like. So anyway, I started talking about Jacqui and then kind of swung away from it, but I'm going to come back around because it turns out Madison tells Jacqui not to come to the carnival, but it turns out that there's this prize, in quotes, that if you raise the most money, you are the one that's going to wind up in the dunk tank. And I'm pretty sure I've got that right. Am I wrong, guys? Does that seem like a dubious prize to anybody else? Is this supposed to be an honor to wind up in the dunk tank? I'm really not sure why it's set up this way, but I would think that would be a discouragement for people to raise more money. I don't really get why it's like this, but okay. But yeah, she, had the option of not doing this, of staying home, but she refuses to cave to what everybody is thinking about her and threatening to do to her. So at one point, she steals a screwdriver, or borrows one, sorry, she doesn't steal it. Veronica thinks that it's to open the cash box and follows her into the girls' locker room or the girls' bathroom. And when Jacqui comes out of the stall, it's clear that she used the screwdriver to scrape some sort of gross comment about her off of the inside of the stall door. So shit is being written about her around school. I'm really curious about the racially tinged bits because we don't really see it, but I feel like there is again an implication that was part of the insult that was written on the door that got scratched out. And then she decides with all the dignity that she can muster, she is going to get in that dunk tank and she's going to do what she said. And she's not going to let anybody like ruin things for her, which that is some serious backbone, guys. Like combination of backbone, pride, and stubbornness. One could say backbone is those things, but I have to admire it because the anxiety that I felt on her behalf going out there was very real. And this is part of the problem. If you are somebody who is a very empathetic person, it can be hard for you to watch moments like this. I've heard that that's also, if you have a lot of trouble enjoying cringe humor, that's also usually an indication that you are an empathetic person. And I can't stand cringe humor. Like it's so, it's not funny to me, you know, it's just not funny. But yeah, this moment of her like walking out and having to literally kind of expose herself because she's in a bikini and she walks out wrapped in this big coat, but eventually has to take that off and just be as vulnerable as you can imagine in front of people who actively hate her and have no problem showing that fact. And I can't tell you how grossed out I am by the idea that these people are acting this way when it was her father and not her. They're acting like she is somehow responsible for their friends' deaths. And I just, you know, after everybody hated on that one girl's father who was the driver, you would think that they would start to fucking realize maybe they shouldn't behave this way because it turns out that they're wrong. And they haven't learned jack shit. Not even a little bit. You know, like, it's really, I don't understand the idea of holding a child of a parent responsible. Like, what did you think? That she helped him plant the bomb? Is that what you think? Like, what? And so the first guy to come up who like throws the ball to dunk her is like, my friend was on that bus. And she sort of tenses up because she can hear like how angry he is. She can feel how hateful he is. But also, she had nothing fucking to do with that. Guy, what are you talking about? Like, I get so irritated. Y'all. So anyway, she lets herself get dunked over and over and over again. And eventually Wallace comes up. And this is a pretty good moment. And I was super, super hoping that Wallace was going to actually be like, I'm going to get rid of every single one of these balls so y'all just can't play anymore. But unfortunately, he is not given time for that. Wallace comes up and pretends that he is going to throw the ball. And she kind of seems to think that because he walks up with the girl that he's going out with right now. And I think that she expects him to be kind of a dick to her because he's with somebody else. But Wallace, because he our boy, is not doing that. And chucks the ball way over the back of the dunk tank into probably like the parking lot. Like, he throws that shit. And it's like, oh, damn. I missed. What a shame. And then he goes back and he does that shit again. And they just like let him until finally somebody steps in and is like, all right, no. Yeah, that's enough. But I have to say, I was just so impressed. Like, I didn't know how he was going to handle this. And the idea of just literally chucking these balls so that nobody else can use them didn't even occur to me. And I love that he is doing that. I really do. It's just so like, it's just him giving the finger and nobody can really say anything about it. Cause it's not like he did anything dramatic. He didn't really break any rules, you know? I just love that moment a lot. And I love Jacqui like recognizing that as far as he can, he's going to stick up for her when he has the opportunity to do it. You know, even though they're not dating right now, that there's a whole other thing. It's not like he's turning his back on her, and he knows that she helped him out recently as well. So I'm all about it. Can we talk? I noticed this episode in particular. And I wish to God so much that Hulu would work right now so that I could read them verbatim. Guys, was there a surfeit of dick jokes this episode, or was it just me? Because I felt like it was like everywhere I turned, there's the first moment where Madison is working on like the posters and stuff, and she's using glitter, and she says to one of the guys, "Go easy on the Elmers. Do I look like I enjoy being covered in white goo?" Which I was like, what are you doing even setting them up like that, Madison? Why would you even say that? Stop it. Madison, girl, sweetie. Think for a second. Think. But then later on, there's like a joke between Logan and Dick, and I can't even remember what it is. And then at one point, Logan's talking to Veronica, and he says something like, "Man, people really love Pep Squad pie, huh?" And says it with this tone, and then like makes another comment right after that one. There are just a lot of dick jokes. And I like, this show doesn't shy away from that kind of thing most of the time, but it felt like there were a lot right in a row. So either there wasn't, and I'm just a lot more sensitive to it, and I put things where they are not supposed to be because I have a dirty mind, or the writers got a little bit excitable this episode and just decided to. I wish I could remember the one between Logan and Dick when they are first arriving at the carnival, because I feel like that one was the most egregious out of them all, and I can't remember what it even was. But yeah, I was a little taken aback this time by how often that kept coming up. Also, what was I? Oh yeah, and I was going to talk about Wallace really briefly about, like, you know, the previous episode. It seemed like they found this kid who was the drive-through cashier at White Castle that was going to like serve as the witness that it wasn't Wallace who was driving. And I kind of didn't expect that storyline to be like done with, and it might still not be. You know, this show does, the seasons for Veronica Mars are long enough that you can drop a thread for a little bit and then bring it back up again, like 4 episodes later. So it may still come up again, but at the moment it just sort of seems like that's over and done, and that he's going to be okay. So that's good. I'm glad for that. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I missed. Because Veronica's dad shares the tape that he got of the conversation with Sheriff Lamb. I wish so much that there was a way to use that tape to prove to everybody that Lamb was extorting somebody without putting this guy's business out there, but I don't think that's possible. I feel like I covered everything. Do you guys have any questions? I'm like trying to think of at this point who I think could have been responsible for the bus crash. And we have this, that's what I'm forgetting. Keith is, he steals like tapes and stuff, and he is going through them and is listening to the testimony of the kids who were almost on the bus. And he had talked to Veronica about that this was likely, this crash actually had nothing to do with her, that she keeps taking responsibility for it, thinking that somebody was trying to get to her and instead killed a whole bus full of other people in their efforts to get to her. But the end of this, he is like watching a tape of Jessica Jones, what's her name in this show, getting interviewed about it, and her being told that Gia Goodman, oh thank you, who killed Curly Moran according to you? Oh, I got nothing on that, Agnes. I got nothing. I really don't. I mean, it could fucking be Thumper for all I know. Thumper's apparently not above murder, and he already killed Felix and was like admitted that. So I could definitely see him killing Curly just to have more blackmail, like for his blackmail with the video of Weevil beating up Curly, to give that more weight because the guy wound up dead. But that's the best I got. But Gia Goodman, yeah, they have her being like interviewed, and her saying that her father told her not to get on the bus. So I think I said last episode that he seems to be pretty anti-poor people. And there is that comes up again this episode when he's talking to Terrence. That's his name. And I'm really starting to hone in on that theory. I think that might be, and it's a weird thing because I don't know how it would work, because just wanting to essentially gentrify the neighborhood, I don't know how killing the poor kids really would help with that, unless what he does is kills a bunch of kids and then swoops in to grieving families who have nothing left and offers them money for their homes or something. I don't know. That's like, it feels so convoluted. It doesn't really work. Keisha says, oh no, sorry. Anya says, and some of them weren't poor like Meg. Yeah, that's true. Keisha says, I think you're right about the Weevil setup because Thumper looked at that car. Maybe it was a Fitzpatrick. Thumper looked at that car. I don't remember what you're talking about, Keisha. I'm sorry. Thumper looked at that car. Anya says, or the gay guy. Right. Because there was that episode a while back now where there was a dude who was like, basically, he was on that bus because his parents were refusing to like let him be with his boyfriend. And so his boyfriend held them responsible for his death. I forgot about that. So yeah, that doesn't really work. I can't imagine what we could get out of their deaths. I don't really get it. When they were beating up Curly and someone lit their car lights. Don't remember the actual name for the car part. I don't remember this at all. I'm sorry. When they were beating up Curly, because Thumper looked at that car. Maybe it was a Fitzpatrick. The PCHers. I don't remember this. Because, like, all I remember of Curly getting beat up was the video that Thumper showed Weevil that he had of him doing the beating. So I don't know I don't remember anything except seeing him beating Curly up, but I don't remember car lights turning on or what you guys are talking about. If y'all know what episode that was in and where that bit is, you can tell me and I'll try and go back and find it. I'm really happy because now that the new season of Veronica Mars is out, the show is on Hulu, because I was having to buy each episode individually on YouTube. And it was like, really, it's watching things from YouTube is a particular pain in the balls. So I'm really happy that it's on Hulu, or I was until Hulu just decided to stop working today for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm sorry guys. I don't know what you're talking about with this, the car lights and stuff. But you know, if it supports my theory, then okay. 'Cause I really do feel like that's the only thing, the connection that Curly had to Aaron Eccles is the thing that Veronica is so focused on. And I can totally understand why. I'm not even saying that Aaron Eccles didn't have anything to do with this, because I could see Aaron being involved. I could see the show continuing to make Aaron a factor after all this time, because he really is that terrible and he has a ton of money and power. But I just don't know what that connection would even be, you know? But I'm sorry that I don't have anything to offer y'all, because I don't remember what you're talking about. Like, when you say, because Thumper looked at that car, is that in the video he looked at the car? Or, and someone lit their car lights? Like, did he look over at a car and that car turned its lights on? Is that supposed to be like, what you guys are saying is that Thumper gave a signal for somebody to light the whole scene up a little bit better so that it was going to be more caught on camera and easier to see that it was Weevil doing the beating? Keisha is saying, yeah, in the flashback. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that sounds like it makes sense then. Yeah, God, I don't know. I'm trying to think if Aaron Eccles could have any connection to the Fitzpatricks. I doubt it, but crazier things have happened, I guess. I'm just trying to feel out if there's anything that I find believable with Aaron being still involved in this. But I don't know. Maybe he's not part of this at all. Maybe that's a red herring. But I'll be very interested to see. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap. But thank you all so much for coming and hanging out with me and feeding me names and giving me this information. Because I need it. This season has been the most inconsistent in terms of timing between episodes, so I'm bound to sort of lose the thread of things occasionally, so forgive me for that, but I hope that I'm doing a decent enough job. If you guys rewatch this episode and find the dick joke between Logan and Dick in the beginning of the carnival, let me know, because it's really driving me nuts. And I just really, I don't care about Jacqui, but I don't want her to be dealing with this bullshit for no reason. So I want her dad to be cleared simply because I don't like seeing an innocent person be held responsible for something that's not their fault. I don't like Jacqui, and whether or not she's all right, that's not really my concern, but she needs to deserve it, and she deserves being treated shittily for other reasons than this. Her being held responsible for whatever her dad did is a whole other thing. Jacqui in the chat is saying that she takes this personally. I said in the very beginning, I was like, thanks to Jacqui for commissioning this episode. So let's talk about how much I hate Jacqui. And then I was like, not that Jacqui. But yeah, I feel like the show wants to get me to like her better. And they're going to really have to do better than this. I feel like they want to have her team up with Veronica and Wallace and surprise me with that. And then they want her to be like the underdog and have me be on her side because of that. I mean, you might be inching in that direction, but it isn't actually going to happen yet. So you're going to have to do better if you want this show. So just saying, commit. Have her realize her past shitty behavior towards people is, inexcusable and not cool, and realize maybe that what she's getting from everybody is what she's been feeding people also. Just saying. Bit of her own medicine is all I'm saying. Me not liking her in this tainted everything after, said Keisha. Yeah, I feel like, honestly, I'm realizing the more I watch of Tessa Thompson in all these different properties, I actually don't think I really like her as an actress very much, is the other thing. It's not like she's always she's not like a bad actress, but I feel like she tends to play a similar person all the time. And that's the part that I find really I don't feel like I ever watch her play a character. I see her as being herself over and over again in different things. But, that might just be me. So I don't know. We'll see if they can pull this out, but I'm not holding my breath, is all I'm saying. All right, guys, thank you again, and I will be seeing y'all again soon with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.